Welcome in to a special Christmas Eve edition of Set the Screen. I'm your host, Justin Phan, joined as usual by Byron Keech and John Raudebaugh. What else would we be doing on Christmas Eve than breaking down the 5-game Christmas Day slate? A ton to get into. We dropped projections for Concierge a little bit ago, and then everybody else should have access by now, be hitting these edges that are popping up. We'll get to those soon. I know SBK is itching to talk about a Spurs one in particular. So we will start with the Spurs against the Knicks, the opening game of the Christmas Day slate. No injuries on either side to monitor. A little blowout risk here with the Knicks as 9-point favorites at MSG. We'll start with the Spurs side first. So some interesting kind of wrinkles for the rotation. Devin Vassell has started the last 3 games. His minutes have been pretty solid, 38, 23, 32. With him, there's a little bit of downside just with they have Steph Castle there. They have Trey Jones. They have Malachi Branham, some other guys that they can involve if this one does get out of hand. They have wanted to manage him in the past. So I think, he's a guy that might be a little susceptible, if this one gets in blowout territory. Jeremy Sohan, his minutes have really solidified and stabilized since he had that 2-game stretch where he's playing low 20s minutes. He's played 30 plus in 4 of his last 5 games. Chris Paul, 3 of his last 4, he's played 30 plus, even with Trey Jones and Stephon Castle in the mix. And then, the biggest loser of all this has been Harrison Barnes. His minutes have really fallen off a cliff, low 20s, some of these games. Some big downside, other guys like Champagny have been pretty good. But Harrison Barnes in particular has really fallen off a cliff. And the last guy we want to mention is Stephon Castle. With that shoulder injury, he was starting before, lost that starting spot to Devin Vassell. He played 13 minutes on Monday, hasn't cracked 23 since his return from the shoulder injury. He's got to deal with Chris Paul. He's got to deal with Trey Jones, Devin Vassell there. So we're still expecting, Castle to be pretty limited here at 20 minutes. Want to get into an edge here, though, that we like. John, we'll bring up the screen share and get into one particularly that SBK wants to highlight.
Yeah, I think Concierge has been moving in a little bit on us. Yeah, I see some 2.5s up there. So Devin Vassell under 3.5 assists. Looks like there's still some out there. Are there? Yeah, the DraftKings number, that still looks good. FanDuel is getting a little iffy for sure. Can you scroll over there? I was kind of curious what the other prices look like. The Bet Online one, I think I would still play that. Bovada still looks okay. So heads up for the new users here. I can't see that well, so I think I'm seeing these edges. It looks green. So yeah, that DraftKings one definitely is good. I think anything minus 140 is fine. Big reason for this. So Justin had noted Vassell moving into the starting lineup. That's more time with Chris Paul, more time with Wemby. In 150 minutes on the floor with Chris Paul this season, Vassell has a 9.7% assist rate. That's 2.15 assists per 36 minutes. Definitely tougher to find assists when he's out there with Paul. And even in like the non-Paul minutes, we're seeing, mainly Trey Jones, if not him, Stephon Castle. So there's going to be somebody out there he's going to be competing with. And just like from a usage perspective, it's kind of, not ideal to be out there with Wemby. Obviously, having him out there as an assist partner is nice, but Wemby does touch the ball a ton, and Chris Paul, is doing a lot of initiating in addition to Wemby. So there's just not like a ton of opportunity there. So yeah, any of the under 3.5s I think are good. I'd probably stop at like 160-ish, something like that. 162, I think is that FanDuel price. That'd be kind of iffy for me. But yeah, I just think there's like a little bit more, we have a pretty full projection here on Vassell. Like you noted that there's some potential downside and blowout. So there's that. So yeah, I'd be good with any of the under 3.5s.
Yeah, it's just 2 games ago. Yeah, sorry. We saw 2 games ago with the minutes downside. He played 23 minutes. Like I said, they have Trey Jones, Steph Castle, Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley there as well. To kind of give minutes to if this one does get out of hand on the road at MSG 9-point underdog. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. No, it's just the assists there with Vassell. Like I said, we're pretty full minutes, pretty strong projection otherwise. Not a lot of edges left on the bone here. We talked about Sohan's role being pretty solid. Mostly just like you said, the Harrison Barnes, like Keldon or Chip Henny's been closing over him the last few games. So there's some push pull there, but not a lot of edges showing here. It's a pretty good matchup for the Knicks. The Spurs defense has really fallen off this month. They started off, defensive rank 5th in October, 15th November, and now they're down to 23rd this month. Looks like it's mostly baked into the market here.
Did want to say one quick thing about Trey Jones. So I see some, overs on some of his props that are extremely low. I see over 2.5 points here. That is kind of appealing. I think the projection we have is fine. He just isn't the guy that shoots the ball. He's taking I think in his last 3 or 4 games, 2 shots a game, something like that. So you kind of are really needing him to make one of those, handful of attempts. So just I'd be a little bit, I think, wary of the points. I think maybe the points and assists might look a little bit more appealing. No, it doesn't actually. It's I guess it's just a points thing, really, just kind of strange for it to be for 2.5. Yeah, I still just not interested in that. I'd just be careful with the super low props with a guy like Trey Jones. It's appealing as they may look. I don't really think they're that great.
Yeah, single-digit usage for Trey Jones in his last 5 healthy games. So since he's been back, 6%, 5%, and 9% in his 3 games. So not super shocking that his points prop is where it is. Want to jump onto the other side of this with the Knicks. Not a ton to get into. They're fully healthy. We know kind of Tibbs' MO. He doesn't give a shit about the blowout. We saw last night they were up 15, 17 points deep in that game against the Raptors, and he still had Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart out there. So we're expecting a 8-man rotation from Tibbs with Deuce McBride, Precious Achiuwa, and Cam Payne off the bench. We gave kind of some blowout hedge risk, some minutes to Landry Shamet and Jericho Sims, who gave him 1 each, to kind of bake that in. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward here with the Knicks, what to expect. Like John said, the matchup here is good for them. They're at home against the Spurs defense that's sputtering. Anything else here from either of you guys, SBK, John, on this Knicks side?
I think the one thing worth noting, this is kind of probably too much, but I think Landry Shamet is a guy that the Knicks had in training camp. He was a guy that they planned on having toward the back end of the rotation. I still remember back toward when we were doing opening night projections, we had him at 8 to 10 minutes range. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets in there at some point, in some very light rotation run. And if it comes from anybody, I would think it comes from most likely Payne with McBride playing more point guard, or maybe McBride himself. Probably not really impacting the starters much. I guess Shamet would be a guy that if somebody gets banged up mid-game or foul trouble, somebody they could turn to. But I just kind of wanted to note that I think there's maybe a tiny bit of downside for the Payne McBride combination with Shamet there. I could see a world in which he gets involved.
I don't disagree. I think that my money would be on it happening later, possibly in a game where it's less competitive and he gets a little bit more practice time and reps with the team. He's just recovering from that shoulder injury. He still needs a ramp up. We saw, in his quote unquote debut this season on last night against the Raptors, he just played that 1.5 minutes of garbage time. So no regular rotation run for him. So I would bet it would come, maybe in a couple games where he kind of gets eased in. Maybe he's a 3 to 4 minute stint in the first half. They'll go from there. But I think you're right. It probably will take 2 minutes off Precious Achiuwa, and then the rest would come from Cam Payne and then Deuce McBride. So I don't think it really changes the math on the starters minutes, where Brunson, Mikal, Josh Hart should all be locked into 35 plus minutes in a pretty full role. So I want to move on to the next game here, Minnesota against Dallas. We just got the injury report at the 2:30 Eastern mark for the Mavs, and Luka Doncic probable. No real worry there with him. We're expecting him to be a full go. Jaden Hardy questionable, but we still did not project him for any minutes, even if he's clear to play. They have a very solid guard wing backup rotation right now between Dinwiddie, Grimes, and Najee Marshall. Do not expect Jaden Hardy to crack that group. Right now, the trickiest part of the rotation, it feels like we're playing, we're triaging a lot of these edges that are popping up with these guys. The trio between Spencer Dinwiddie, Quentin Grimes, and Najee Marshall. Right now, we have all three of them projected around 17 minutes, kind of hedging a little bit, but it always seems that we're low on Dinwiddie or we're low on Quentin Grimes. SBK, want to toss it to you. I think, for us when doing projections, everything else is pretty self-explanatory. We're Klay Thompson, 26, 27 minutes, Lively his range. Luka and Kyrie are going to play a lot. Gafford in that backup center role. Kleba in that fourth big role. Where do you kind of come down on this group between Dinwiddie, Quentin Grimes, and Najee Marshall? And does it change a little bit in this matchup against Minnesota?
It's tough to figure out for sure. I think the one guy that we've given a little bit of credit to that I could see being cut down. Again, there's a decent range, I think, but Najee is one guy that we came up a little bit on. We were a bit lower relative to the market than we are now. The market also, I think, came in at 8.5 points. I still think this under 7.5 for him is good. That 128 is probably the limit that I would play that to, maybe 130. But I definitely think there's still a little bit of downside. I still do think Dinwiddie's going to at least eat up that whatever's left behind Luka and Kyrie. You think Grimes is still going to get in there? I think he's probably the most likely to get cut back relative to where we have. But yeah, it's just not a good matchup for any of these guys to produce stats just as it is. Minnesota's obviously tough in that regard. We have both Luka and Kyrie there. So I think in terms of scoring, especially with a guy like Najee, opportunities aren't going to be great. So I think even if he gets to 20, 22 minutes, still, going to have plenty of life here. I also don't mind the under 3.5 rebounds for Najee. I'm curious. Can we take a look at that real quick?
Well, I was going to note too, Najee played he only played 3.5 first half minutes last game in that blowout. He most of his minutes came last game in blowout run.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I don't think he's lost his rotation spot, but it's noteworthy though.
Yeah. So one thing is we got some decent sized Dinwiddie rebound unders there. I do think they're fairly volatile. Like we said, there's definitely I think a range of outcomes on Dinwiddie, on Grimes, on Marshall. We're we're at pretty much 1.4 rebounds. It's obviously fairly, price dependent in terms of whether you're going to be interested in that or not. But it looks like the prices out there are kind of intriguing. I would express some caution on those though. Super volatile with Dinwiddie's role kind of in general. And then, the rebounds at this low of a number is also kind of super volatile as it is. I think
it does kind of feel like we're low on the Maxi Kleba minutes to 11.5. It's just like a constant push pull trying to figure out who to dock minutes from, and we want to be full on Luka and Kyrie, Derek Lively as well. And then I think we were, pretty good. I feel good about the Klay Thompson minutes at 26.5. The rest of it, there's
low.
Yeah, I mean, last two games, if you go box score hunting, game log hunting for Klay, the minutes are really low, but they're two blowouts last two.
Right.
Before that, he was pretty solidly, upper 20s with the minutes. So we docked a little bit. Usually we're around 27 with him, but we came down to 26.5. We feel good about him there. So yeah, it's just kind of across the board. What kind of edge were you trying to identify?
Can we look at RA for Dinwiddie or just a PRA thing for him? So Jaden Hardy is questionable. There is that. So I think it's maybe a small amount of risk to Dinwiddie. And if he were to end up if we see a full allotment of Luka and Kyrie, which is high 30s for them, it would not shock me at all if we saw Dinwiddie in the low to mid teens, a little bit lower than we have now. So I don't mind playing these Dinwiddie unders. I think I'd probably, the rebound under was showing a bigger value, but I think I'd probably prefer to play this or what does his RA look like? No, that's been a painful one for us a couple times in the past. But I think that could also be intriguing. Yeah, I think that's fine also. I think you could look at the RA, especially if you're getting like a minus 115 instead of a minus 125, as opposed to the PRA. But I think either of those are fine. I think, the rebounds is fine too. I think we're on the right side of that. We could come up a couple minutes and still show some value there just given the price. But it is extremely volatile for sure.
I think when I'm looking at this matchup, they're 5.5-point favorites at home against Minnesota, meaning they're more likely to be playing ahead. And you look at where Minnesota gets its points from. It's obviously that shooting guard position with Ant. It would logically favor good wing defenders for me in Grimes and Najee Marshall over a guy like Dinwiddie. Just the way this game kind of sets up. So we saw last game, it was a blowout too, but he didn't play a ton in the first half either. Dinwiddie played 14 minutes total. So I think there's that floor there, especially if like Luka, this game gets really competitive. Christmas Day, national TV games, you might see Luka get up to like 40 minutes instead of like 37 and a half. I see Kyrie get up to closer to 38 minutes instead of 35 and a half, right? That combination of things plus the matchup and the projected game flow makes me a little bit more comfortable taking some Dinwiddie.
Yeah, you could definitely make a case that, we could be low minutes on Luka and Kyrie. Luka last Christmas Day, 50 points in 43 and a half minutes. Year before that, 39 minutes, 32 points. So not touching these Luka unders, and I think makes for a better case for these Dinwiddie unders too.
All right. I think we can move to the Wolves side. The rotation is pretty straightforward here. I would say the only thing that would be noteworthy is we're projecting Conley for fuller minutes here at 28. We've seen him, the first few games he got back from injury, he hit like low 30s. So we've kind of seen that ceiling. Obviously, the bottom falls out a little bit in blowouts where there's more downside there, but this projects to be a pretty competitive game. So we gave him, 28 instead of, 27 and a half. Don't have Dillingham in there at all for any minutes. And we're projecting Josh Minott as the final rotation piece for that team. Na and Dante at 23 and a half. We've really seen Rudy Gobert's minutes get up there. We've been projecting him pretty routinely between like 35 and a half and 36. I don't have a lot else to add on the Minnesota side in terms of like projections, notes, and minutes. SBK, you got anything on the Wolves side?
Can we go to rebounds real quick? I did think there was like an interesting Julius Randle rebound on there. I thought, I'm not sure if it's still there. No.
Yes,
the 7.5 were gone.
I see.
So yeah, we can. If you see one pop back up, I think it's worth taking a peek at, especially if it's like in the 150 range. I think is where it was when I had seen this earlier.
You can make a case where could be on the lighter end of Randall's minutes too in this spot, just national TV game.
Yeah, definitely got upside for high 30s in the event that it's competitive for sure. Yeah.
Anything else here, or we want to move?
Yes, I guess same goes for Ant too. Slight under showing on his assists. Been kind of volatile lately, but again, I think it could be a minutes thing too.
Yeah, I think we can move to Philly.
All right, let's move on. Yeah, next game, Philly, Boston. That 2:30 was pretty busy for the Sixers injury-wise. We got the news KJ Martin's out at least 2 weeks with a stress reaction. So Andre Drummond questionable, Eric Gordon probable. So obviously, this had a decent amount of effect on our minute projections for Philly. All those are updated now. We're projecting Caleb Martin to start with KJ Martin out. Caleb Martin, his minutes have kind of come up a little bit. He was managed to kind of start. So I don't think there's going to be any sort of like minute restriction on him here. So we have him at 29 minutes. I think a realistic range for him is probably like 26 to 30, 27 to 31, I would say. And it also kind of depends on the status of Andre Drummond too, because Drummond's absence would definitely thin them out in that front court. We would come up on Caleb, I would imagine, like 30, 31 minutes. Yabu would get extended as well. We bumped Yabu minutes. I think we had him at 16 originally. We have him at 19 and a half now. And there's upside there. Like I said, if Drummond ends up missing, Yabu would have to play that backup center role behind Joel Embiid. Also gave a half a minute to Paul George as well with KJ out. Took him from 35 to 35 and a half. And yeah, I think this game flow, they are 10-point dogs right now at the Garden. We don't expect to get too much more aggressive on any of the starters' minutes in Maxey, Embiid, Paul George, and Kelly Oubre. We're pretty full on all four of those guys. So, even if you get a Drummond out, don't think we're going to move at all on any of those four players' minutes. We're just going to kind of bump up the back end, the Eric Gordons, the Ricky Councils, the Reggie Jacksons, the Yabuselas of the rotation there. So yeah, kind of want to get a little bit more into Philly. Any kind of specific edges, things that stick out to you guys in this spot?
So just generally, I think the Celtics, there were a couple of Celtics assist unders we liked. Curious, I think it might depend a little bit on which, outs you have. It also looks like they've moved a little bit since release. The upside to having concierge is getting these early. I still think the Pritchard under 3.5 at -137 is good. So it's like it's at Caesars. I'd probably be fine with the -145 on Bet Online, but that's kind of like a stopping point, I think, would be that number. But yeah, we expect another full rotation. Obviously there is, I think, a little bit of, blowout risk here. The Sixers are kind of a mess, but yeah, seems very much like Tatum will play, which, gives them everybody. We are still pretty full, I think, on the Pritchard minutes. 25, 26, 27 is kind of around that range I'd expect him to be in. And yeah, his assists generally just tend to take a little bit of a tick down when they have all these guys here. And yeah, so it's just kind of a numbers thing. We're projecting like 3.1-ish, but a pretty full minute projection. He doesn't have like much downside, but I don't think he has too much upside either. I don't. It's probably would be fairly surprising if he were to climb upwards of like 30 minutes. So yeah, like any of those to like 145-ish. Jaylen Brown, if you have like a -110 on the under 4.5, looks like Hard Rock has that price. Anything in that range, Fliff even I think is okay. But anything like plus money I think is good on the Jaylen Brown under 4.5. We're pretty much right at that mark, but again, we're a pretty full minute projection. Do think there's a little bit of blowout risk. And yeah, they just kind of have everybody. So I think the assist lines for these two are a little inflated. I like the plus money, especially with the Brown under, and fine to about like -145-ish with the Pritchard under.
Yeah, we'll follow up on the Tatum stuff. Extremely late scratch on Monday with that illness. Would fully expect him to go. We're not expecting any sort of minute limitations. We have him very full right now at 36 and a half. And to piggyback on the Pritchard stuff, like they are fully healthy now in a game that we're projecting close to ceiling minutes for a lot of their starters. So Drew Holiday, we're at 29. Jaylen Brown, we're at 35 and a half. Derek White, we're at 34 and a half. Tatum, we're at 36 and a half. So, you kind of put that together, and we're not really aggressive on Sam Hauser either. That means, Pritchard, instead of he's been creeping up to like 28, 29, some of these games when they've been shorter and or in a blowout spot, for his minute expectation gets closer to like 26 and a half where we have him right now. We'll also note that Kristaps Porzingis, if this one does stay competitive, he's shown a bit of a minute ceiling recently. So Porzingis has played 36 and 37 minutes in 2 of his last 3 games. We have him at 32 right now, but if this one stays close, could definitely see him at 35 because we hid 3 minutes between Luke Cornett and Neemias Queta. So you take those 3 minutes off those 2 guys and give them to Porzingis in a competitive game. Is very achievable. So want to note that Porzingis, like, in our head, we think he's managed. He's not going to play a ton, but 2 of the last 3, we've seen him at 36 and 37. Anything else here on that Boston side before we want to move on?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, that's about it.
Now we talked about the Jalen and Tatum, these FanDuel lines. We don't think they're there anymore, right?
They're not. Yeah, the one thing worth keeping in mind is like obviously the markets have shifted around a bit for Philly. Like we had KJ Martin stuff; he's obviously out now. When I looked before we came on, it looked like there was just the four main guys: Embiid, Maxey, Paul George, and I forget somebody else. The four like kind of Oubre, the four starters we can like count on, and then I think it seems pretty evident that it's going to be Caleb as that fifth starter, but a chance I guess we don't get more of those ancillary players until we get a starter tomorrow. But we'll be keeping an eye on those like kind of Caleb, Albu, Drummond, Lowry, like all those markets. We don't have them. At least I don't think we have them right now. We didn't have them prior to the show. But we'll be keeping an eye on those. So just something to watch for. We don't have a lot of those markets yet.
All right, let's move on to the Lakers-Warriors game. We're expecting, AD, LeBron to be, listed on the IR as usual, but, fully expect both of them to go without any sort of minutes limits. Note Max Christie has really solidified his minutes since moving in a starting lineup. He's played 26 minutes at least in 7 of his last 8 games. That's come largely at the expense of Dalton Connect, who's been stuck in the teens mostly ever since. In terms of minute projections here, I think the guy with the biggest range by far is D'Angelo Russell. We've seen the last 2 games, his minutes have ranged from 16 to 30, and his minutes just entirely depend on if his shot is falling on a particular night. So we have him at 22 right now, I think 22 and a half, somewhere around there. He has a big range, so he could play 18, he could get up to 28, just kind of depending, like I said, if his shot's falling. In terms of Lakers side, we'll get to the Warriors next, and the Lakers side, anything out here that piques your guys' interest that's noteworthy?
Could you? I didn't look at this before. Can you go to the PRA and just or rebounds and assists and just look at Gabe Vincent? He's a guy like 5.5 points is a bit of a weird one for him. I mean, he does tend to shoot a lot of threes. I guess not much there. I don't mind under 5.5 points. It is a little less appealing, obviously, than 6.5 would be, given he takes a lot of threes. Yeah, not much there, but I think Vincent's an interesting guy in this matchup. Like, obviously, the Warriors have a guy like Steph, who, his defense could be useful out there against. So I think he's also got a decent range here, but that's also kind of like in step with Russell. If Russell's not playing as much, there's obviously more opportunity for Vincent. So, yeah, I think just keep an eye on those markets. Looks like maybe that ESPN minus 130 and under 5.5. I would be kind of intrigued with that if I could get down there. But other than that, it doesn't look like too much else.
Yeah, I don't think I'd consider if you look at guys like LeBron and AD maybe playing more in a national TV game. Like I don't think that's going to cut down a guy like Gabe Vincent, like you said in this matchup. Against Steph and I think like they have their rotation they're gonna stick with, and I don't think they're gonna get LeBron way up to 40 minutes or anything like that.
Yeah, it'd probably come out of Koloko, Cam Reddish, 2 guys that come to mind.
Koloko hasn't even been in there the last couple of games.
Yeah. So that would be the 2. Gabe Vincent, I think, is pretty solidified in that mid to upper teens type minutes range. Did get some news. We'll get to them in a minute, but Devin Booker and Grayson Allen did not participate in practice today. We're expecting both those guys to be out tomorrow, but just a little bit of news that just came out about 10 seconds ago that kind of solidifies our position that they're maybe closer to the doubtful side initially. We'll go to the Warriors next. Gary Payton II sat out last night's game with a calf contusion. I think with the Warriors, we're used to them playing a little bit deeper in the rotation. But even without GP2 last night, Kerr kept it relatively tight. Played 10 players, and we saw Pods really get up there to 26. Jonathan Kuminga get really up there to 30. And then the starters, too. Schroeder played 30. Wiggins played 34. So the GP2 injury or his status is definitely impactful for this rotation. We're talking, I think in our base set, we have him at like 9 minutes right now. But he's a player that could play from between, 8 to 12 minutes. And, if we're not projecting, I think we're definitely not going to put Lindy Waters in there if GP2 is out. we might have like 2 minutes on slow-mo or something, but that's 8 minutes that we're going to be redistributing among some of these Warriors rotation players. That definitely has an impact on their projections right now. So I think you're seeing some unders that'll pop on, pods, some of these other Warriors rotation players right now. Be cautious because GP2 status, if GP2's out again, their minute projections will go up, a minute or two likely. So kind of want to start there, SBK, with the Warriors, with GP2, how impactful that is, especially if they're keeping it tighter, which we expect them to do tomorrow if GP2 is out. Kind of talk about the impact of him and then any other things that stand out to you with the Warriors.
And I think you nailed it. I think you can look at this screen right now and see what could be happening. We're a little bit light on pods, like you said. A couple of those minutes probably going to shift over to him. That probably more or less reduces this 14% edge on the ESPN to essentially nothing. Schroeder, possible we give him another half minute. That cuts down that edge. Buddy, there's a little bit of an over, but not much of anything. He's a guy who would step into another minute or two. So yeah, I think great point on expressing some caution on the pods unders. I think the RA, that does kind of look interesting. And if Payton plays, I think I'd definitely be interested in this. But because I think let's say we get news that Gary Payton will play, I think we probably feel we're a little light on the Payton minutes, and we might take another minute and a half, 2 minutes from somewhere. Probably not likely pods, but yeah, I think in the event that we get news that Payton is definitely playing, I think you could look here at the under 7.5 RA. But yeah, until we get clarity that that's for sure happening, I'd be very, very cautious on any pods unders for sure.
I think the Schroeder projection, is a little fragile too, not just because GP2, but he's had, no surprise playing next to Steph, mega low rates, through 2 games, well below his career average, rebound especially, but it's such a small sample. Fully expect those to, regress, but, it's tough to capture exactly, what the range is, on his rates through 2 games in this new situation for him. But yeah, I'd probably be into the unders on him as well if GP2 is in there, but don't feel great about it.
Yeah, there's a range there. I think we even saw last night against the Pacers, he lost playing time in the second half to Pods. Pods played, I think 8 minutes to close the third quarter, then the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. So I think they played 14 minutes straight. Pods did in the second half. So I think Schroeder ended up being a minus 22. Didn't play that well, and that's a risk when you are on this Warriors team. If you're not playing well on a particular night, they got 11 other guys that can turn to to make it happen. So yeah, Schroeder, especially new team, new environment, minutes volatility, GP2 status in the range. There's a lot of variance there that I don't feel super confident in taking a stance on him just yet.
Yeah, very, 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 very small sample, obviously 2 games, but the starting lineup with Schroeder in there is a negative minus 15.8 net rating so far.
Oh boy. Thankfully they only paid 2 seconds for Schroeder. So that's still a good piece of business for them. But yeah, we'll see tomorrow. I think that lineup will yield better results. Like you said, small sample. Schroeder just kind of getting adjusted, and I don't think playing next to Steph will take a lot of adjusting, just given the gravity he commands and how good of a passer he is. So we'll move on to the next game, Nuggets Suns.
We got one more edge here. We got to get to one more edge. Can we go to the turnover? Just trying to get us right out of here. We got a Draymond edge to talk about. Come on, that's interesting. It's at the top of the list here. It should simulate very quickly. And yeah, I think that turnovers is a market that's not offered at as many books now, very sadly.
Yeah.
But if you can get this under 3.5, I think any of these prices on the screen here are fine. We don't spend too much time on that, but I think he is going to potentially benefit a bit from the fact that they now have Steph and Schroeder in that starting lineup. Assuming that the Draymond continues to start, the Warriors starting lineup outside of Steph and Wiggins is a little bit tough to figure out most nights. But assuming he's going to be out there with more Steph and Schroeder, obviously, think having 4 turnovers is going to need to have some bad variance there. So we gave him a little bit more credit than I thought he deserved even to get to this point. So yeah, very good with any of those under 3.5.
Yeah, we're pretty full on the minutes too. I think at 29. So I feel like a usual projection for him would be like 28 minutes on a normal regular season game. We kind of ratcheted up a little bit for Steph and Wiggins as well in this spot, closer to their ceiling projections. So, all right, we good to move on. Any other kind of turnover or 3-point projections
No,
you want
to? We can move on over.
All right, we'll go to last game of the slate, Nuggets Suns. I think we'll start with the Suns side actually. We just like we said, just got news not too long ago. Devin Booker, Grayson Allen did not practice today. Didn't even make the trip to Denver for Monday's game. So the last update we got on Devin Booker, he was out at least 2 games. Last night was that second game. So yeah, we're projecting both of them out right now in our base projection set. Would mean Royce O'Neal would get the start again. He's kind of served as that 6th starter as of late. They got absolutely blown out last game against Denver, but huge minutes we saw from Beal and Kevin Durant in the first half. Both those guys played 19 minutes in the first half. We talked about Beal already on Monday's show that he's pretty much off any sort of minutes limit now, and he's going to have to get up there and play just because they're so starved for shot creation, scoring, all that. So yeah, we get this spot again, Suns Nuggets 2 days later. I think we came down a minute on Yusuf Nurkic. Obviously, a really bad spot for him. He got in foul trouble. He got 4 fouls in the first half against Nikola Jokic. Anything else here on the Sun side that we want to highlight?
I mean, I think you noted it with the foul trouble for Nurk. Like this is another spot where that is going to be a decent possibility again. I would take the 30 Ryan Dunn minutes with a bit of a grain of salt. Don't really think he's getting up there again. I think he needed a lot to go right, including the game to turn into a blowout to get there. So yeah, if Nurk can stay out of foul trouble, it's pretty much every night with him. Like he either tends to go way under or way over, wherever his props are. It's not much in the middle. So he's going to continue to be volatile, but yeah, matchup with Jokic is not ideal for him by any means.
Yeah, without Booker, last season, KD, of course, team high, 6.2% usage rate differential. This season, it's very similar, 4.7. Beal also gets a boost. I just wanted to call out his last 2 games. He's had a really big role. Team high 147 touches, 99 passes made. That's more than Tyus Jones even. So I kind of like his assists over here. I wanted to point out too, for the new listeners / watchers here, we set a conditional projection without having the injury report yet. So if we just wanted to show everyone how it works.
I think we can still it seems unlikely that either of these guys play, but I think there's still a scenario where maybe we get Grayson, he clears concussion protocol, whatever. Maybe we get where Booker plays. I think one guy that's super interesting to look at with this is Ryan Dunn. He had him and Monty Morris really both, but more so Dunn. He has props, as if for sure that they are both not playing. But yeah, to throw Grayson in like you're doing there, you can get an idea. We'd be way, way under market. Obviously, if you put Booker in there, yeah, it's it would be an incredible percentage there. Yeah. So with
so you can tell which way the market's leaning here as well.
For sure, yeah, it's been kind of the case all day. So it does seem far more likely than not that we get both these guys out. But yeah, if we get some positive news on Grayson like that Dunn under turns into obviously an incredible bet from essentially a coin flip.
Yeah, I want to also pull up that conditional menu again, John, and note the percent play that we have. So currently we have both Devin Booker and Grayson at 40% to play tomorrow, just given they didn't practice today. I just updated that. And that's just something that's updated dynamically throughout the day, according to any news we get from shoot around, pregame warmups, etc. So yeah, and then you can toggle it any different type of way. We have 4 projection sets currently for the Suns to cover all different scenarios or situations between both those guys being out, one of those guys being out, both those guys being in it. So kind of go through those and kind of see how the edges move and are impacted.
Yeah, day like yesterday came in handy when we had like 15 conditionals. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, go ahead.
No, I kind of want to get your thoughts on Ryan Dunn a little bit more, SBK. So first half yesterday, obviously Nurk got in foul trouble. We saw Nurk, Plumlee, and Oso play the 24 minutes between center in the first half, right? But Ryan Dunn played 14 minutes in the first half. So he still played a ton. I think a lot of that was at the expense of Josh Okogie, who only played 5 minutes in the first half. I do think there's a bit of a ceiling there with Dunn. Maybe we kind of come up like another half minute on him. But I kind of want, I want to talk through like his range of outcomes and the minutes there for him in this spot.
So assuming that they both sit again, I think the ceiling is probably about where he ended up in the last game. I can't really envision it being too much better than that, aside from him like starting and playing more. But I think in terms of where the floor is, it's probably not too much lower than where we had, maybe like 18-ish, something like that. I think like 18 to 26, something like that is probably like where his realistic range is. But like even when he's out there, like he's not high usage. Obviously, he's not like a great offensive player. It's just like gonna be a shooter there. It's not gonna give you much, even with Booker out. He's fine. He's a decent rebounder for his position. Nothing special there. He's not racking up assists. So like even that's the one nice part about like playing under on a guy like this is like he could get up there a little bit more in terms of minutes, 25, 26, and still kind of not get home. But again, I just do want to hit home that like it does seem very much like both of these guys are going to be out. So like at this point, like these done unders aren't, I don't think, great plays. But I do still think there's obviously a little bit of upside in the event that Grayson gets upgraded. It doesn't seem like Booker's going to. But yeah, I think there's in the event that one of those guys does get upgraded, it turns what is likely like pretty much a coin flip into like an exceptional bet. So that is just like just in terms of using these conditionals, like when I think the best value that people have had using these is like when we have a lean like we do here, 40% out, 55% to play. Using the conditionals, I think around this time of the day, like or a little later when we release, that's the optimal I think use of this. And a way you can get ahead of the market and not have to like rush to your phone and have like 30 seconds, a minute to spare when news breaks. Like these are ways that I think you can legitimately get ahead of the market, not have to rush and be able to like look through, think through things, see where we have things in different scenarios and make like a good judgment call without like having to be under the gun. Like you have 10, 15 seconds to act. So I think it's a great value add for the stuff around this time of day.
All right, let's move on to the Nuggets. We got Jamal Murray, a sprained ankle last game. On Monday, he missed. Talked about it on the show. We were expecting him to miss. They played an overtime game the night before. He played 41 minutes in that game. So we kind of think it was a little bit more, injury management, a little bit more situational where he just came off a 41 minute OT game in the first leg of a back-to-back. So, I think I would guess that he's listed probable on the injury report for tomorrow, maybe questionable, but we're expecting him to go. Jamal, without any sort of restrictions, we have him at 36 minutes currently, which is pretty full for him. Anything else on this Nuggets slide that we want to get into? Obviously, we talked on Monday too, like Russ has been playing a bigger role off the bench as of late. He's been giving them good minutes, providing a lot of good energy. This is a team that struggles with depth already as is. So yeah, any observations here on the Nuggets side, SBK?
So we do like the Jamal Murray under 6.5 assists. Looks like some of the market's down at 5.5. But if you can find an under 6.5, like MGM's got one. Hard Rock looks like they're Bet Online, even though that one's pretty heavily juiced. Caesars, that price is pretty good. ESPN Bet, Hard Rock, Flip, all in pretty good shape. You can get double digits there. We like that one. You alluded to the fact that more Russ. It is actually, surprisingly, in the time that Murray has been out there with rust, he actually has had a small assist rate bump, which should surprise me to see. But it's still, I don't think, 6.5 number, I think is still kind of too high. Even considering that, I would expect over the course of the season that what is a current bump for Murray with his time on the floor with Westbrook in terms of assists to turn into a bump down over the course of the season. So, like any of the under 6.5, I think it's like 150-ish probably is about where we want to stop there. But yeah, I do like those. One thing that I see in this chat I want to get to, I'm just seeing the event that anybody reads this. So somebody noted that Yabusele lines have popped up on FanDuel. We have noted earlier in the show that Drummond is questionable. That is a humongous impact on Yabu, especially from a points and rebounds perspective. I saw somebody follow up with saying that looked nice. You're betting unders on these guys that have other people up in the air in terms of Q tags, especially a guy like Drummond who's a humongous rebound rate. You are playing with fire. So I would not be touching the Yabusele lines with Drummond questionable.
Yeah, out of anybody with the minutes right now, he has the most upside to go up if Drummond ends up sitting. So there's a lot of volatility there. Drummond, he got that fake ejection last game, and then he didn't return with that toe injury. Don't really have a good read on him. Obviously, no information since with Drummond. I think there's a pretty good chance he misses here, which would add a good amount of Yabu upside. So I do want to pull up, if we could pull up the Yabu lines. If it's a spot where we're close to market as is,
we're not
with
that
Yabu,
yeah, it's not
yeah. So I think it's a decent chance to free roll a little bit, and kind of capture some of that upside. We're showing, decent edges on the unders. So I think it would be a spot I would look at playing if we were close to market, and you could just kind of free roll Drummond possibly being out, and capture some of the upside. But it doesn't look like that is really the case right now. So would probably stay away. Also, shout out to Bussy, grinding Christmas Day props, as usual in the chat. All right. Anything else? Let's kind of. You want to get through some of these questions, or?
Yeah, one thing I did want to point out though. So we know we have some users who are new, some free users out there. If you like kind of what you're seeing, we do this 7 days a week. All three of us are here all the time. We are running a special right now this week. You can get the rest of the NBA season, the entire package, for $6.99. It's a pretty good price, and once that ends, we'll be paying a decent bit more than that. I think just locking in the rest of the season, that price is a pretty good deal. One more week left of that. If you like what you see here, I think that is worth the price.
All right.
I got the banner up on my share screen, Justin, if you want to.
All right, I'll throw that I was wondering what's happening over there. I just thought
I was trying to be slick.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, gotcha. Beautiful. Look at that red and green ball. Wow. How do you not want to purchase that? 30% off. Come on, guys. $6.99.
Other than that, I think we had a lot of Booker questions and Grayson questions in the chat that we.
Yeah. I'm going to start. We could go. Let me kind of scroll back. I know there were some a little earlier that I didn't want to touch on. We got a question on Lively over points and assists. There is some value, I think, on the Lively points over. It's 6.5. I think it's fine. It's a very tough matchup for him. Obviously, it's pretty much as brutal of a spot for him to produce offensively as you could get, which I think explains why the line's at 6.5. I think it's okay, but you are playing with fire. It's a tough matchup. I think I'd express some caution just in terms of the spot more than anything. What do you guys think of this spot for Lively, in terms of generating points?
Yeah, this is a spot where I'd much rather attack through the perimeter, and that's where their scoring comes from. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Lively to produce here in terms of points, just with the way Minnesota defends. So
he struggled in that. He struggled in that first matchup earlier in the season.
We did get a question from Corey Hahn. Just to be clear, you guys are taking the day off tomorrow, right? No, sir, Corey. No, sir, we are not. We will be here all day. We'll be up bright and early. I'll be opening my Christmas presents for about 4 seconds, and then I'll be hopping onto this computer. So don't you worry. Well, any news, anything that possible, we'll have eyes on it at all times. This is what you get here. This is why this $6.99 the rest of this season is such a great deal. We're going to be here. Justin has a shot collar. If I get too far away from this computer, I immediately have to go back here. That's the kind of value you're getting for $6.99.
Yeah, it's true. We might feel generous and get SBK a pair of glasses for Christmas, but TBD.
Well, different color sweatshirt, yeah.
Yeah, I told the kids, wake up, but if you like these presents, Daddy's got to work. So.
Yeah, don't you worry, Corey. We'll be here. There was another pretty good one I saw. Eli had asked, where can one find the data on touches and passes made? The NBA has that data publicly available, NBA.com stats pages. So I think if you just Google like NBA potential assists, NBA.com stats, whatever, you'll find it. Touches, passes made is all in there. Shouldn't be too hard to find. And yeah, there's a lot of cool shit you can play around with in there. So once you figure out how to use those stat pages, you can get lost in there for a while. Yeah,
go to the player sub menu for stats and the tracking. Yeah. And there's between passing and touches. Those two sub menus should have you covered. Give you everything you need.
Yeah, you can see like another like use case of that is that sometimes like if particular guys are out, like sometimes I might look at go to a player stat page, look at like his most common assist partners, see like if like we've done it for the Bulls when they've been missing some guys. It's like like Levine, like his most common assist partners by far is like Vooch. So like when he's out, it's like that negatively impacts him a little bit more than most. So there's just the different ways you can use this kind of stuff that I think could be valuable, give you some like context of why what's happening is happening sometimes, or maybe why a guy is maybe getting unlucky in a certain area, things like that. So it's all useful.
Okay. I think we are all covered there. We went as deep as we could, give you like a full hour show on a 5-game Christmas slate. As always, appreciate everybody hanging with us. We will be in the Alpha chat 24/7 answering questions for you guys. Shout out again to our Christmas special that we're running, $6.99 through December 29th. So you got 5 more days to take advantage for the rest of the season. We'll be doing these streams. We do them 3 times a week generally, and we'll be back for the Friday slate. The schedule gets very annoyingly similar the rest of the way, where we're just getting 6 to 9 games every day for like 3 weeks. So. Yeah, we'll be here. Appreciate you guys. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We will not be taking tomorrow off. We will be treating tomorrow like any other Wednesday. So we will see you guys Friday. Thanks for hanging with us. And yeah, let's have a good day tomorrow and today. See you guys.
The crowd is ready. Get ready.